Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going over my week number 5 must-add waiver wire players. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. And if you do want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. I would also like to ask that if you guys have any questions for week number 5, to never hesitate to ask down below in the comment section. I love talking to you guys down there. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 5 waiver wire ads. We begin with the running back position, headlined by Tyler Algier of the Atlanta Falcons, going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa Bay this week. Currently, Algier is owned in 18% of leagues on Yahoo Fantasy. If you play on ESPN, CBS, NFL, any of those other fantasy football platforms, then the ownership percentage is going to be slightly different. And in some cases, the ownership percentage will be drastically different for some players depending on the platform. Currently, Tyler Algier is the RB53 in half PPR. Cordero Patterson has been placed on the IR and will be eligible to return in week number 9 up against the LA Chargers. So, at least for the foreseeable future, Tyler Algier should be the number 1 running back on the team. Week 4 up against the Browns, he had 10 rushes for 84 yards and 1 reception on 1 target for 20 yards. Another positive, at least for week number 5 for Tyler Algier, is that his teammate Damian Williams, the other running back on the team, is still on the IR, but he could return for week number 6. This leaves Algier, Huntley, and Avery Williams left for this week. I assume right now that Algier is going to be the guy. Now, they're going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we all know that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have an extremely good run defense, aside from last night up against the Kansas City Chiefs. But I think that Tyler Algier will more than likely struggle in this game. So I'm not telling you to get out your fab and fucking make it rain on Tyler Algier. I don't think that is necessarily the smartest idea. But I do think that Tyler Algier is worthy of being picked up, because even with Damian Williams coming back potentially in week number 6, we could still see Algier be the main guy for the next 3 weeks. So I think that still makes Tyler Algier the number 1 running back to add on the week, unless Melvin Gordon is available. We're going to be talking about Mike Boone. He is my number 5 running back add. But if Melvin Gordon is available in your league, I know he's not going to be available in most leagues, which is why he's not included in today's video. But if he is available, you should make it fucking rain fab all over Melvin Gordon. You need to be adding him, because even with the fumble issues, he is the clear number 1 running back to be adding on the week. Next up, we move to Raheem, the Dream Mostert of the Miami Dolphins, going up against the New York Jumbo Jets in MetLife. Currently, Mostert is owned in 50% of leagues on Yahoo. And right now, he is the running back 43 in half PPR. Week 4 up against the Cincinnati Bengals. He had 15 rushes for 69 yards. Very nice. I like 69. Very funny, as we all know. 2 receptions on 3 targets for 12 yards. Now, in my personal opinion, I'm a Dolphins fan. I try to stay very in depth, or look very much in depth into what's happening. And I personally believe that under Mike McDaniel, they haven't been the most run-heavy team. They haven't been using that 49ers system that many people thought they were going to use. They were using the Mike McDaniel system from when he was in Atlanta, and they were throwing the ball more. But I think that with Tua banged up and Teddy Tugs under center, that they are going to look to run the ball more. It appears that Mostert is better than Edmonds at this point right now, but neither of them seem like they've clearly edged each other out, meaning that I don't think that Mostert is clearly this bell cow back on the team. And the same thing I think about Edmonds. While I think Mostert's playing better, it doesn't mean that Edmonds is going to be sitting on the fucking bench all game, right? They are going to use both of them. But if Mostert continues to seem more and more like the guy on this team, then it's going to be more and more likely that I want to roll out Raheem Mostert going forward. So this week, he's not a must-start running back. I think the matchup up against the Jets is definitely decent, but if he continues to build this momentum and be the guy there, then I think he might be a must-start running back going forward. After Raheem Mostert, we move to Brian Robinson of the Washington Commanders, going up against the Les Titans on Sunday. 54% ownership for Brian Robinson. Now, Brian Robinson has been medically cleared, and the team now has 21 days to put him on the active roster. It is not a lock that he plays this week up against the Tennessee Titans, but he needs to be rostered. There was so much negativity being put on Antonio Gibson's name in the offseason. Antonio Gibson lucked out by what happened to Brian Robinson. Now, with Brian Robinson potentially returning this week, I believe that Brian Robinson could be the lead running back on this team going forward. Antonio Gibson hasn't really shown much in the absence of Brian Robinson. He's just been meh, or maybe even below meh. The guy has not been good at all. So if Brian Robinson returns and he's fully healthy, now I'm not a doctor. I'm as much of a doctor as Johnny fucking Sins or some of the other guys you can see over on the hub. But while I'm not a doctor, I do believe that Brian Robinson will have made the full recovery. It's not like they're going to just rush this motherfucker back for no reason. We've seen him training the last couple of weeks on Twitter, and he looks good. He looks good. So again, I'm not saying if he plays up against the Titans, you need to jam him into your lineup. I think that would be a little bit crazy. But after this week going forward, he might be a legitimate running back too that you want to be starting in your lineup every single week. Next up, we move to Nyheim Hines of the Indianapolis Colts going up against the Denver Broncos in Denver on Thursday Night Football. Nyheim Hines is currently owned in 62% of leagues. Jonathan Taylor's ankle came back negative, which means he could play on Thursday. The thing is, this game is on Thursday. If the game was on Sunday, Colts versus Broncos, I think there's a pretty good chance that a week later we see Jonathan Taylor at least push to try to play, so there would be a chance that he plays. In my opinion, since it's such a short turnaround on Thursday, I would be fucking bewildered if Jonathan Taylor was starting and playing significant amount of time. This opens the door for Nyheim Hines. Now, it is very clear from what Frank Reich said, and from my opinion as well, that Phillip Lindsay will be worked in. Phillip Lindsay will be getting touches. It's not just going to be this Nyheim Hines-led backfield where he's like a workhorse fucking running back or something. That would be crazy to believe. But I do think that Hines gets enough touches, a couple of runs, a couple of receptions, that he could finish as an RB number 2 on the week up against the Broncos defense that does not look very good at all. Week number 4 up against the Les Titans, he had 1 rush for 0 yards, 2 receptions on 2 targets for 3 yards. Again, he's going to see some volume. I do not expect Jonathan Taylor to play, but the fact that Jonathan Taylor didn't actually have a high ankle sprain, that he's probably going to be good not this week, but next week, there's really no need to blow a high waiver priority on Nyheim Hines or blow a bunch of fab on him to close out the running backs. Before we pivot into the wide receivers, we've got Mike Boone of the Denver Broncos going up against the Indianapolis Colts, 2% owned right now on Yahoo. Now, sadly, Javonte Williams has torn his ACL as well as his LCL and posterior lateral corner. Again, not a fucking doctor. I have no idea what posterior lateral corner means, but when you tear your ACL and LCL, that's not very good. That's no bueno, as they would say. So Javonte Williams, I feel bad for him because now when he comes back next year, I don't even know if we can be all aboard the Javonte Williams train because of all of these injuries that happened at once. Obviously, it sucks for Javonte Williams, and I wish him a quick return. Now, we talked about Melvin Gordon a little bit, but we kind of just put just the tip in on Melvin Gordon, right? We didn't go balls deep. So this means that Melvin Gordon is going to be the guy. But Melvin Gordon has a bad case, a strong case, a deadly case of fumble-itis. This guy can't hold on to the fucking ball if it was his job, and it is his job because he gets paid millions of dollars to be an NFL running back. Now, again, I think Melvin Gordon is going to be the guy, but how long of a leash does he have? If he keeps fumbling, we could honestly see Mike Boone take over as the lead back on the team. And while this Denver Broncos team hasn't been ideal, right? When you were going into the season, we had all these high hopes of the Denver Broncos. They haven't lived up to that because Nathaniel Hackett is a certified fucking stooge. But at the end of the day, I think Mike Boone could get it done. Now, don't blow all your fab on him because Melvin Gordon is still there, but there is potential for Mike Boone to claim the spot on the Iron Throne as the lead back of the Broncos. Last week up against the Las Vegas Raiders, he had 3 rushes for 20 yards, 1 reception on 3 targets for 9 yards. So again, Mike Boone isn't there yet, but would it surprise me if Melvin Gordon kept fucking up that Mike Boone took his job? Definitely not. Now it's time to pivot to the wide receiver position, headlined by Michael Gallup of the Dallas Cowboys, going up against the LA Rams on Sunday in LA. Gallup currently owned in 41% of leagues. Michael Gallup, as well as Brian Robinson, have been players that I have touted for multiple weeks that you need to pick up. Brian Robinson, again, was owned in 54% of leagues. I guess people didn't catch on as quickly onto Michael Gallup, currently owned in 41% of leagues. He needs to be rostered. There is also a chance that Dak Prescott, quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, returns in week number 5 up against the Rams. Now, if I'm the team and Cooper Rush has looked this good, and I'm not saying Cooper Rush is like fucking Patrick Mahomes or something, that would be crazy, but the team keeps winning with Cooper Rush. I know it's a tough matchup up against the Rams, but if Dak isn't fully ready to go, then don't risk it. I hope Dallas doesn't risk it for the biscuit and throw him out there, because him getting re-injured would be a unmitigated disaster for the Dallas Cowboys. I assume, though, that Dak is going to play in his return, Michael Gallup's return from the IR last week up against the Washington Commanders. 2 receptions on 3 targets for 24 yards and a tug in that game. Not the craziest of involvement, but I also didn't expect him to be out there being force-fed by Cooper Rush in his first game back. So I expect as Dak Prescott comes back, we see a lot more Michael Gallup usage in this offense. The next wide receiver to discuss here is Romeo Doubs of the Green Bay Packers, going up against the New York Football Giants, currently owned in 69% of leagues on Yahoo. Again, all of these players aren't going to be available in every single league. So if some of these guys aren't available and you have questions, oh, maybe I want to pick up this wide receiver, just leave it down below. Or running back, quarterback, tight end, just ask it down below in the comment section and I will talk to you about that player and my opinion on them. So Romeo Doubs, currently the wide receiver 35 in half PPR. He's had back-to-back games with solid production and a touchdown in each of those games. Week 4 up against the New England Deflatriots, 5 receptions on 8 targets for 47 yards and a touchdown. He also fumbled, which isn't great, and that had me immensely worried about what was going to happen to Romeo Doubs in that game. Is he going to be put on the bench? Are they going to throw him into the doghouse and fucking lock away and throw away the key? They did not end up doing that. Romeo Doubs came back, scored that touchdown. He had a pretty solid game. Now, the Green Bay Packers are, in my opinion, they're on fraud watch right now. And what I mean by that is that they just barely beat the Brian Hoyer and Zappe-led Patriots team. This Patriots team is ass. They're ass, and the Green Bay Packers barely squeaked or eked out a win. It's embarrassing. I think the Packers should realistically bend the New York Football Giants over in London. I know London, last week you got the excellent Vikings versus Saints game. I know you can't wait for the Packers versus New York Football Giants at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you live on the West Coast, it has got to be a tough scene to wake up at 6:30 a.m. to watch these teams play football. Again, I like Romeo Doubs a ton, and that's why he's owned in a lot of leagues. I also touted him last week. Next up, we got old man Corey Davis of the New York Jumbo Jets going up against the Miami Dolphins at home in MetLife. Currently, Davis is owned in 24% of leagues on Yahoo Fantasy. Right now, he is the wide receiver number 22 in half PPR. Week number 4 up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. 5 receptions on 7 targets for 74 yards and a score. He also led the team, numero uno, on the team in targets on Sunday. I am starting to worry, not just slightly, the yellow flag is out, the red flag is out. I am incredibly worried about Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson, because it is very evident that Zach Wilson wants to force feed the rock to Corey Davis. We all know that Zach Wilson prefers him on the older side. We can tell that by, how he likes those MILFs, Zach Milfson, the MILF hunter. But it is shocking that when you have weapons like Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson, that you are feeding the ball to Corey Davis. And again, could everything change? Definitely. But we saw Garrett Wilson eat over the first 3 games of the season, and the motherfucker is starving after week number 4. Corey Davis, while it's not sexy to pick him up, it's not sexy to want to play him, the defenses are going to be worried about Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson. So Corey Davis has a very strong chance of having a good game even up against a Miami Dolphins secondary. Next wide receiver here, a guy that I've cut off of my teams, but maybe he's back again. Darnell Mooney's back. Tell a friend of the Chicago Bears going up against the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota. 56% owned for Darnell Mooney. Currently the wide receiver 81.5 PPR. Week 4 up against the Giants in MetLife. 4 receptions on 5 targets for 94 yards. Finally, now this finally is in all fucking caps, we see Darnell Mooney show up, and he's had back-to-back Michael Jordan 96-97 games with 5 targets, and that would have seemed like a miracle after the first 2 games of the season. I am not sure that I want to jam Darnell Mooney into my lineup against the Minnesota Vikings, because the Minnesota Vikings defense looks legitimate. They look like a solid defense, and the Bears offense looks like absolute horseshit, but they're starting to throw the ball a little bit more. Darnell Mooney is starting to get more attention by Justin Fields, so I think going forward, not necessarily this week, if Mooney keeps putting on and putting up these solid games, then we're going to want to start Darnell Mooney in the future. To close out the wide receiver position, we have George Pickens of the Pittsburgh Steelers going up against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo, currently owned in 39% of leagues. But before we break down Mr. George Pickens, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends and our sponsor over at Underdog Fantasy. They've been on your screen this whole entire time. I'm pointing to them right now, but the microphone is blocking it. Are your best ball teams already cooked? Well, head on over to Underdog Fantasy to resurrect them with their Week 6 through Week 17 best ball tournament. The entry fee is only $10 with $500,000 in total prizes and $100,000 going to first place. All you got to do is draft your team, and that's it. You don't have to worry about sitting up on Tuesday on the waivers, perusing the waivers. You don't have to worry about making trades, because there are no trades, there's no waivers, and there's no in-season management. Underdog will automatically give you your best score at the end of each week of the season, and the highest score at the end of the season will end up taking home that prize pool. Underdog also features daily and best ball contests for the MLB, the NBA, PGA, and NHL, so you can get in on the action all year long. They also offer Monday Night Football contests, like tonight's game, Monday Night Football. They also offer games on Sunday, Thursday Night Football, and Sunday Night Football. So make sure you guys check that out. All you got to do is click on the link in the video description down below, or use promo code STOCHASTIC, STOKASTIC, to get a first match deposit bonus of up to $100 with Underdog. So back on into things, we got George Pickens, who's currently the wide receiver 65.5 PPR, tied with the injured Jacoby Myers. Week 4 up against the Jumbo Jets, he had 6 receptions on 8 targets for 102 yards. Pickens led the team in targets in week number 4, and in my opinion, with Kenny Pickett seemingly being the guy going forward, then Pickens is going to be that dude in Pittsburgh. Now, Deontay Johnson is still going to get used, and I think Deontay Johnson and Pickett will develop a connection, and we're going to see Deontay Johnson still be a very viable player. I still think it's absolute horse manure that he didn't score a touchdown. Did anyone watch that game? I tweeted out the clip during the game. Deontay Johnson 100% toe tapped that ball like he was Antonio Brown, and Antonio Brown toe tapped Tony Toes. He tapped that shit down. I don't know how that's not a touchdown. Someone explain to me how that was not a touchdown if you're still watching this video. That made no fucking sense. But again, Pickett and Pickens have the connection because of training camp. Pickens is on the second team. He's practicing with the second team. And Pickett was the second team quarterback. So they have that connection already. So I think Pickens might be prime for a humongous breakout going forward. And Chase Claypool has just been doing his best John Cena impression, because you can't fucking see him. He's invisible. He doesn't do anything. What does he even do? Have you ever seen those memes? What does he even do? And it's just a picture of fucking Chase Claypool, man. Embarrassing. Next up, we move to the quarterback position, headlined by Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions. Facing up against, going toe-to-toe with the New England Deflatriots in New England, currently owned in 53% of leagues. If I didn't say it, Pickens is owned in 39% of leagues. So Jared Goff, currently the quarterback number 5. I know we all thought that going into the season, that Goff was going to be this absolute fucking menace for defenses to face. We all thought that the Lions would be one of the best offenses in the NFL, the highest scoring offense in the NFL. I'm sure we all knew that, right? Yeah, we all knew that. Week 4 up against the Seahawks, 26 completions on 39 attempts for 378 yards and 4 fucking touchdowns with an interception. Jared Goff went fucking bananas up against the Seahawks, and they still lost. We're going to talk about the Seahawks quarterback, who also went fucking absolutely insane in the membrane in that game as well. Jared Goff has looked good, and Jameson Williams is going to come back soon. This offense is fucking loaded. They are loaded with talent. Swift wasn't even there, and the motherfucker had almost 400 yards with 4 touchdowns and an interception. Jared Goff is legitimately good. Now, I'm not here to tell you that Goff's the franchise quarterback of the Lions, because that probably will not be the case. They'll probably end up drafting a quarterback if they keep losing like this. But Goff deserves some respect. Hashtag give Goff the respect he has earned. Because Goff, that's too long of a hashtag, but you get what I mean, right? Goff deserves more praise than he gets. Again, I know he's not like the best quarterback in the NFL, but he makes the Lions decent. Like, not every quarterback could succeed in this situation. I can tell you that much. So I got to give a little bit more credit to Jared Goff. And I've always been a Jared Goff guy. So the people in the audience, maybe you guys like Jared Goff too, but people need to give him more credit. Next up, we got T-Law of the Jaguars going up against the Houston Texans, currently owned in 76% of leagues. Right now, he is the quarterback numero 15 in fantasy football. Week 4 up against the Eagles, 11 completions on 23 attempts for 174 yards. 2 touchdowns and an interception. That was his worst game, but he was going up against a very tough and incredibly tough, a rock-solid defense like they're on Viagra in the Eagles. The Eagles' defense is legit. They might have one of the best, if not the best defense in the NFL. So Lawrence playing pretty well in that game was amazing to me. And what was even funnier is at the end of the game, I don't know if you guys saw, but Jason Kelce of the Eagles did a jersey swap with Doug Peterson, head coach of the Jaguars, because obviously Kelce played under Peterson, and Peterson doesn't have a jersey, so he gave him his jacket, and Kelce got his jacket, and Peterson got Kelce's jersey. I thought that was incredibly heartwarming, honestly. It was beautiful to see. Obviously, this is not some video where we're talking about Jason Kelce that much, but Trevor Lawrence has looked good. Urban Meyer, what a disaster that guy is, right? He's a great college coach. If he goes to like Nebraska or something like that, they'll win a national championship in the next 10 years. But in terms of the NFL, the guy's a fucking idiot. Just funny to see. Like, we thought that Trevor Lawrence was ass, but Trevor Lawrence actually isn't ass. It just turns out that the head coach there was a buffoon. The final quarterback to discuss, and then we'll pivot into the tight ends, is Geno Smith of the New Orleans Saints of the Seattle Seahawks going up against the Saints, 13% owned on Yahoo. Geno Smith, it's incredible. It's incredible. I've made fun of this guy all the time. I didn't think he was good going into the season. I still don't think he's that good. But he's not bad. He's quarterback 9 in fantasy right now. Up against the Detroit Lions, this motherfucker put on a clinic. 23 completions on 30 attempts for 320 yards and 2 touchdowns. Also had 7 rushes for 49 yards and a touchdown. A fantastic showing from the man. DK has a good game. DK has to get carted off because he has to take a shit, which I thought was hilarious. That was like Paul Pierce did with the Boston Celtics when they took the wheelchair out for him, but instead this time he's just on the side. He's looking like, when you ever seen what is that, the Bell Tower in Canada in the Views thumbnail, not thumbnail, like the Views album cover with Drake, and he's sitting there. That's how fucking DK went to go take a dump, came back. That was literally the funniest thing I've ever seen. But Lockett didn't play the best, but DK did. Lockett's looking decent. Geno Smith's looking good. Man, oh man, I mean, the Saints defense hasn't been the best. Geno's probably startable this week based upon how good he has looked. Now we move to the final piece of today's video with the tight ends. My favorite position. You know I love those tight ends. Wink, 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 wink. Hayden Hurst of the Bengals going up against the Ravens. Prime time Sunday Night Football. 21% owned for Hayden Hurst. Currently the tight end 15.5 PPR. Week 4 up against the Dolphins. 3 receptions on 4 targets for 27 yards and a score. Now, normally Hayden Hurst has got it done in fantasy by being a target hog. Last week, he scores a touchdown. Hayden Hurst seems to be incredibly entrenched, immersed, and just incredibly used in this offense. And not in a bad way. He's used in a good way. They're just targeting him a lot. I like this matchup against the Ravens to be high scoring. I think we could see Hayden Hurst dabble his way on into the end zone. So I like him this week. Next up, we have David Njoku of the Browns going up against the Chargers. Now, everyone and their mother picked him up last week, 73% owned. There are not a lot of tight ends that are on the waiver wire that I want to pick up, so I had to include David Njoku here. I also checked other websites' ownership, and his ownership was not as high on the other websites. So currently the tight end 10.5 PPR. I thought maybe week 3 up against the Steelers was a fluke, but last week he was targeted a lot up against the Atlanta Falcons. 5 receptions on 7 targets for 73 yards. So maybe it's not a fluke. Maybe until Deshaun Watson comes back, we can keep on rolling out David Njoku, and that Chargers defense is it the best final tight end here. This is where you're scraping the bottom of the fucking barrel. Big Bob Tonyan of the Green Bay Packers going up against the New York Football Giants at home in Lambeau, but it's not actually in Lambeau because this game's in fucking England. I forgot about that. Just super, uber excited to wake up at 9:30 a.m. to watch that disaster where Daniel Jones might not even be fucking starting. No bueno. 32% ownership for Tonyan. Currently, the tight end 16.5 PPR tied with Logan Thomas. Week 4 up against the Patriots. Not really targeted. 2 receptions on 2 targets, but he gets 22 yards and a touchdown. We all know Robert Tonyan was a touchdown monster, not last season because he got banged up, but in 2020. I think Robert Tonyan is a decent start, but again, knowing that I'm banging the table aggressively for. So thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. If you did end up enjoying, make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below, as well as hitting that like button. It would help me out a ton. And if you do want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. I would also like to ask that if you have any questions about week number 5, please make sure that you ask them down below in the comment section. I love talking to you guys down there. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, goodbye.